Hello and welcome back to the stars, everybody. Welcome back to Starfield, where today we're going to be taking a look at the Breach shotgun. This is one of the late game shotguns, and this is probably going to be one of the last shotguns that you actually find. This is a semi-automatic shotgun, kind of. It has a very slow rate of fire for it being a semi-automatic shotgun with a drum magazine in it and a bunch of other weird stuff strapped onto it. So let's go over the base stats and some pros and cons of the Breach. For the base stats, this one does 99 damage per shot, which is very high. It's one of the highest damaging weapons in the game just in terms of raw damage, which is pretty cool. This one fires the 15 by 25 shotgun shell. This is one of two weapons that actually uses this shotgun shell. It's this and the pacifier, so it doesn't have very much competition. Although the pacifier is also a pretty good shotgun. We talked about that earlier on one of these lists. This one holds 7 rounds by default. However, this is one of the weapons that actually gets increased based on the number of magazines that you have that buff that up. For me, mine was holding 10 rounds by default, which is pretty good. 7 rounds is still fine enough for the rate of fire of this weapon. And speaking of rate of fire, this one has a whopping 10 rate of fire. So it's one of the slowest shooting weapons in the game. And that's kind of annoying about this weapon. That's like one of my major gripes with the Breach, is that it fires very slow. We'll talk about one of the mods too that's kind of silly for this weapon, but the rate of fire is very slow with the shotgun. It does not shoot very quick. That might not be an issue if you build it a certain way, and we're going to be talking about that when we go over a modded version of this. This has 20 meters of range, about the same as most of the other shotguns, so pretty good on range. That's nice. I do like that they made all the shotguns in this have actually pretty good range. This has pretty decent accuracy for a shotgun too. It's not super inaccurate. It's not super accurate though. It depends on how you're considering accuracy. It's pretty easy to hit the majority of your pellets though at most ranges. And this one weighs 7.3. It is a hefty shotgun. These are heavy to carry around, but they are worth a lot of money. So if you do find them, then that's pretty cool. You can sell them for a decent amount. For the general pros of this weapon, it does actually have pretty good damage per shot. The damage is very staggering at close to medium range and even at long range where damage drop-off does occur. This one is still pretty consistent. It also does have pretty long range for a shotgun because it does have such high damage. Those are pretty nice things about this, and it has fairly common ammo too. It is also only in competition with one other weapon. For the cons, this one has a very slow rate of fire, so follow-up shots are not very quick, which can be an issue if you're fighting multiple strong enemies at close range, where the shotgun can be really powerful, but it's going to be very slow switching from target to target. And this is also a fairly rare weapon. You're not going to be finding the Breach all that often. Mercenaries don't tend to have this one super often. Merchants can sell the Breach, and there are some unique ones that you can actually grab right at the very start of the game, which is really cool. We'll talk about that when we go over the unique variants of this. Overall for the Breach, in my shotgun tier list, I believe I put this in A tier, and I'd probably still keep the Breach in A tier. The base Breach is pretty good if you want a high damage shotgun at very close range, or even out to medium and longer ranges. So long as you're okay with not having fast follow-up shots, then the Breach is pretty good. And it also does kind of have a slow rate of fire, and it's also kind of heavy. So you have to kind of weigh all those, but the damage that it serves is pretty good, and same with the range that it has is also pretty good. Now let's go over a modded version where I'd put that on the tier list. So for mods, starting out at the barrel, we either have the standard barrel or we have the long barrel. I would just say throw the long barrel on this. It gives you longer range, makes it so you have better accuracy and better recoil. Although the recoil reduction isn't really needed with the Breach because it doesn't fire fast enough for you to really have to worry about managing the recoil. It's fairly controllable. Then for a laser, we either have the regular laser or the recon laser. Recon laser is the better of the two. Just put that one on if you can. If not, don't worry about it. Lasers don't give you a huge advantage, but they are just bonus stats. Then for an optic, interestingly enough, this is the only shotgun that can actually have a scope on it, which means that this one can count towards the sniper perk too. And weirdly enough, the Breach is actually pretty decent as a sniper rifle, especially if you build it a certain way. It can actually be really good. So putting a scope on this is actually really nice. If you're not going to be using this as a scope shotgun and you're not going with the sniper perk, then the reflex sight is also pretty good. Iron sights are okay if you like them too. I would just recommend you throw the short scope on here though if you want to get the maximum amount of damage out of it. Then for a muzzle, I'd recommend that you either put the suppressor or the choke on this. The suppressor on this, again, kind of makes this a really good sniper rifle or sniper weapon. If you have the stealth perk, then suppressors just gives you more damage, so that's really good. The choke gives you even longer range if you want to be sniping even further with this, so pick one of those two. And if you're not going with either of those playstyles, then the muzzle brake or the compensator are also pretty decent. For a stock, you just have the tactical stock as an upgrade. You might as well throw that one on there. It just makes it all around better than it otherwise would. And then for a magazine, you actually have a lot of different options for the breach, and most of them are pretty good. I would recommend one of 4 of them. Either the slugs, flechettes, Tesla pylons, or the explosive rounds. So for slugs, this actually just turns your shotgun straight up into a sniper rifle. If you put the suppressor on it, you put the scope on it, I was getting like 900 damage on my breach, and this is kind of one of the better like sniping weapons that is weird. So that is actually really, really good, and it compresses your damage just into the most amount because it's just one single slug then rather than a bunch of pellets. So you get the most amount of damage to armored enemies too. Flechettes are really nice because they also give you long range and they can bleed enemies. That's really good too if you want to have bleed on there. That's awesome. The only thing that won't affect is robots. Tesla pylons are actually pretty decent, and I have some footage in the background of this where the Tesla pylons do have a travel distance or do have travel time, so you have to lead your shot a whole lot more, but they do kind of work more as like explosive rounds then, because you only have to hit kind of close to where you're trying to aim. If you hit something directly, you will have this Tesla pylon hit, zap enemies, well, deal damage, and then zap enemies all around it and slow them down, even though I would say probably the slugs are the best option for this, at least for the way that I was using it. And then explosive can get you more damage, even though it technically nerfs your damage. You can just be less accurate with this and just fire it in the general direction. Explosive in this is not nearly as crazy as it is in like the double barrel with the Hornet's Nest rounds. It's still decent though if you want to use it for kind of crowd control. I would say that slugs is probably like the best option for this weapon though. I think it really excels with slugs. Then for an internal, we have our standard options of high powered, hair trigger, or high velocity. Hair trigger is a faster rate of fire, and I would definitely go with that one. It isn't a huge increase to the rate of fire. It goes from like 10 to 12, but that's at least something. And if I could find a rapid version of this, it would go from like 10 to 14 or 15, which would be decent, but it wouldn't be anything crazy. It would just make the gun feel a lot more consistent and a lot better. High velocity gives you the longest range, so if you want to use this as a dedicated sniper, you can. And then high powered gets you the most amount of damage, which I don't think is really necessary with the breach, but if you just want to overkill stuff, by all means go for it. And then we have a receiver, which you can either have in semi-auto or in full auto. Semi-auto technically works with more perks, so semi-auto would be the better option, but sadly full auto with this weapon doesn't actually change the rate of fire. The rate of fire is the same whether it's semi-auto or full auto, it's just that now you can hold down the trigger, which it still has the slow rate of fire, so it's still like boom, boom, boom. It's not very quick, so I don't know why they bothered putting a full auto or a semi-auto version of this weapon. I just stuck mine with semi-auto and it was perfectly fine. It's basically the same rate of fire. It's the same practical rate of fire. You're not going to get that much out of putting like the full auto on there. Although if you want it, by all means throw it on there. Or if yours came with it, you know, you could keep it. So with all of these on here, I would actually move the breach up a tier to S tier. It's actually a pretty decent sniper weapon or a designated marksman's weapon. I don't think it's the best for that role because I think the Beowulf and the hard target are better options for a sniper. Mag sniper to some extent too, and I would say that the old earth hunting rifle also rivals this one, because even though the breach can do more damage than that weapon you can spam fire much quicker, and its damage drop off is actually even further than it, so that's pretty nice. You can totally take this as your sniper rifle and use it just for that role, then switch to any of your other shotguns for close or medium range. Now there is actually 3 unique versions of the breach that we need to talk about, so let's go over each of them. The very first one is called the Experiment A7, and this one you can get during the main quest line. You get this one, I don't remember what the quest is called, but it's where you're shifting back and forth between timelines, where you're going between the bugs and the regular world, and it kind of reminds me of Dead Space. It's a really cool mission. It's one of my favorite like mainline missions in this game, and you get this just from talking to the chief of security. You have to pass a persuasion check, and then if you do, then he will give you this weapon. This weapon does have some mods on it, and it also has a unique effect. For mods, this one has a reflex sight, a tactical stock, and it has flechette rounds loaded into it. All of those are pretty decent for this particular weapon. And then for its unique effect, it has Exterminator, which gives you 30% more damage towards all of the bugs, or just all aliens in general. That's really cool. That's a really nice effect to have. It's a very good effect, and this shotgun definitely kills bugs. It's a really good bug killing weapon. It was probably one of my favorite weapons on like my first playthrough. The second unique version you can actually buy right at the very start. This is called the Rapid Shot, and this one you can buy from the UC in New Atlantis. You just have to go to the store and buy it. So as long as you got enough credits, you can grab this right away. And it's pretty much fully modded out, and it has a really good effect. So for mods, it is fully automatic. It's got a hair trigger, so it's actually got a decent rate of fire with this. It has a laser sight, a long barrel, a tactical magazine, and a tactical stock. All of those are pretty good. That is just a all-around very solid shotgun that you can grab right at the very start. On top of that, it has the rapid effect, which gives it 25% increased rate of fire, which is probably one of the best effects that you could have on the breach because its rate of fire is so low. So this one is a very strong weapon. On like New Game Plus runs, I would recommend that you just grab this right away. It's going to be a very solid shotgun, assuming you don't just get a breach that already has rapid or has 2 or 3 other effects on it that also include rapid or something. Rapid shot is really, really nice. And then the last one is the riot shotgun. You can get this one from completing a quest on Mars. You have to go to Jane's store, talk to her, and then finish her little side quest. Then she'll have this in stock, which you can buy. This one's also extensively modded out, and it also has a unique effect. So for mods, this has a choke on it, which is really cool. EM charge shots, which make it so that this shotgun is non-lethal, and I think that the breach is actually one of the worst ones to throw the EM rounds into, just because it's slow rate of fire. It can work in a sneak build, but it doesn't work as well as like the shoddy where you can just spam it at something until it gets knocked out. The breach just doesn't shoot quick enough for that to really work, so I would take that one off. It's full auto, it has a hair trigger, it has a recon laser, it already has a short scope on there, and it has a tactical stock. So if you swapped out the charge shot for slugs and then you put like a long barrel on this would be perfect as a sniper weapon or improvised sniper rifle for a shotgun build. On top of that, it does actually have a really good effect. It has the concussive effect, which concussion makes it so that it's more likely to knock down enemies. Shotguns are already pretty good at that, at least if you already have the tier 4 with shotguns. So you can knock them down even more consistently with this. That's pretty good. So overall, would I recommend the breach? Yeah, but I would recommend that you upgrade its rate of fire. Preferably if you can find like the rapid shot, or you can find one with rapid already on it. That will help it out quite a bit. Try out like the sniper version of this. It's weirdly like very strong. It feels about as strong as like the hard target. It's just a hard target you can fire much quicker, and it feels a lot more snappy between shots, whereas the breach really doesn't. But if you're going with like a shotgun only build, it's probably your best option for very long range shots. It's pretty consistent. Like slugs in this with the scope is surprisingly good. Tell me your thoughts on the breach down in the comments below, and where you would put it on the tier list as well. Thank you guys so very much for watching this. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will talk to you guys next time. Till then, stay cool, and bye-bye everyone!